Our next session of the day. You know, as earlier this year, let me close that door. Okay. Yeah. No, earlier this year, I don't know how much you guys know about the itinerary making that goes into Marine Money Week. But, you know, Matt and Mike come up with great ideas about what, seems topical, bounce them off of me, and 99.9% of the time, we just go with the agenda because it's always so well thought out, so different, et cetera. And this next session is no different. So what we thought made a lot of sense was to get the behind-the-scenes story about one of last year's biggest M&A transactions, and that being ADNOC L&S's $1.5 billion acquisition of the Navig8 group. And so that's what we wanted to talk about, conversational style. Joining me on the panel are two of the key constituents of that transaction, Nick Gleeson, ADNOC L&S's CFO, and Jason Klopfer, Managing Director from the Navig8 group. So we'll get some insights as far as how that went down. I teasingly was going to start with, well, how did you guys meet? But anyhow, instead of doing something like that, we had actually, a little bit more detailed questions than that. So, Nick, I'll start with you. What was the ADNOC L&S strategy behind selecting Navig8?
Yeah, so at the time that I joined ADNOC L&S, there was already an ongoing discussion strategically about the imperative to globalize the business. So we had a huge business in integrated logistics and international shipping, which was being run out of office in Abu Dhabi, right? And to optimize the business, we recognized that we had to be positioned globally, we had to have a physical presence in other markets, and we wanted to extend our capability base to kind of meet the growth of our existing platform and what we knew was going to be coming through the ADNOC and other third-party client platforms. We talked about investment in ship management, investment in major international owners, as well as investing in commercial pooling, and ultimately we settled on commercial pooling being very interesting. We met with some participants in the market, and I think it was when we first met with Navig8, we realized that there was probably an extremely good fit to our platform. I think the trading mentality, which satisfies what we need to deliver into ADNOC to meet the ADNOC Global Trading and the ADNOC Trading businesses, the scale of the fleet, the historic success of the management in that business, and the focus on quality and customer relationships all ticked important boxes for us on top of other offerings in the Navig8 platform.
Gotcha. And so following up on that, perhaps, you just touched on how the acquisition aligns with the company's overall growth strategy, but can you maybe dive in a little bit more in that in terms of how that alignment really fits in?
For sure. So you can see that ADNOC has been growing very rapidly globally, and our business has been growing rapidly globally. Typically what we've done, we've built a business to meet ADNOC's needs historically, and then we develop that business and offer the same services to third-party clients, and that's resulted in our business becoming very international over time. Navig8 have a commercial platform which covers all major markets. They have the relationships in all major markets. They're demonstrating a capability to deliver superior rates through their operations around the world, and so that fits really well. If you look beyond that, beyond purely commercial, they have the investments in ship managers, you have the bunkering platform, you have the way they manage their book in terms of using FFAs. There's a number of things that they're doing that extend the profitability of the business beyond what we had been historically achieving. So they not only facilitate our growth, but facilitate more profitable growth.
Gotcha. And then final question, and I'll give you a break, and then we'll go to Jason. But how did ADNOC identify that this acquisition fits the company's broader growth strategy? What about it did you see where it's like, okay, well, this is what we're trying to achieve, this will help us achieve that?
So we were open to a lot of things. As I mentioned before, we looked at a lot of different potential solutions, but I think one thing that was really important was actually the closeness of fit with management. Speaking to the people inside the business and making sure they had the same mindset in terms of commitment to deliver rapid growth of the business, and there's a proven history of that in the Navig8 platform. I think the focus on delivering excellent services, so going beyond the minimum requirement to delivering exactly what clients want globally. And we felt like they were a partner who was going to extend our capabilities in those ways.
Gotcha, fantastic, thank you. Take a breath. Jason, so from the Navig8 perspective, what are the Navig8 capabilities that create new synergies for ADNOC L&S in both the shorter and longer term? And then maybe as a follow-up, how are those synergies creating new value and enhanced customer service?
Okay, that's quite a bit.
Yeah,
well, first and foremost, I want to take a moment. I know a lot's been said about Jim Lawrence over the last couple of days, but it would be inappropriate not to acknowledge his contribution to Navig8 from our inception, really infancy stages. He broadened our network, provided us a forum to reach out to new capital providers and some of the interesting shipping investment and strategies we were coming up with. So, you know, I did want to take a moment and acknowledge his contribution to our company. Capabilities that we bring to the table, short and long term. I'll try to, I think a lot apply both to the short and to the long term, but certainly our pooling business and the ability of ADNOC L&S to immediately deploy their assets in a proven platform that drives heightened earnings, we hope is an immediate value add. I think some interesting different investment structures, if you look at the time charter investment strategy, which a lot of people in this room has participated in one facet or the other, you know, going out and taking exposure, asset-light exposure, and then syndicating that out to capital providers to provide them with pure play earnings exposure to the shipping markets without exit risk or hard asset involvement, I think has been compelling and something we look to do in the future. Beyond that, certainly our bunkering business, that's a complementary business for ADNOC L&S. It creates an immediate broadening of the maritime services sphere that they were looking at. And with all the changes, different grades, different suppliers, qualitative concerns over suppliers, driving better prices through aggregation, it's a real opportunity there to create some short-term synergies. And I would say saving the last, you know, the best for last would be information flow. Navig8's, a central part of Navig8's DNA has been having our finger on the pulse of the market. That's why we have offices all over the world. That's why information flows in real time so we can make smarter decisions. I think the integrated companies using that information can drive better decisions. I think those all apply to the short term. Longer term thinking, I think certainly technology. We've been quite fearless in our approach to coming up with new technologies to evaluate emissions. All of that information and discussions have been passed on, and we're looking at ways to scale that business. And the network, right? I mean, ADNOC L&S has a great Rolodex of people they're friendly with and JV partners, as does Navig8. Now, as an integrated company, we can go to the market collectively and really try to drive some great growth strategies together to widen the asset base from a shipping perspective.
Fantastic, thanks, Jason. And Nick, I saw you nodding your head. Does ADNOC L&S look at synergy delivery from the transaction in the same way? And is there anything beyond this in terms of shareholder value creation?
Yeah, so there's a few ways that we look at this, but we're mostly focused in the long term. So I think a lot of people have looked at the transaction as an acquisition of a group of tankers with a commercial pooling capability, and we see much more than that. We see the globalization bring a number of people into our team who have extremely strong capabilities in the space, and so expanding our capability set as well as our geographic base. Yes, we add the tankers to a fleet at the time that we think is likely to be valuable going forward, but we add that commercial pooling platform. We're using the commercial pooling platform. We look at the data-driven services and analytics behind that platform that we think are advantageous to us as well as to our clients. Again, you know, the bunkering business, watch this space. I think there's probably room for something to happen there globally. And I think, you know, the access to the ship management platforms add a lot of value as well. So we're much more focused on the platform value than we are on the assets purely. And in particular, the quality of the people who are in the platform.
Gotcha, excellent, thanks, Nick. And so Jason, back to you. As a result of the deal, how do you see Navig8 evolving its growth strategy to align with ADNOC's energy transportation priorities while continue to expand globally, diversify the asset base, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very exciting time, right? I think people have to put things in perspective. looking at the assets first, right? ADNOC L&S has allocated 20 ships to the platform, which immediately gives us that much more scale. But also those vessels coupled with the 30-plus vessels that were acquired from Navig8, state-of-the-art modern ships, gives us a real commanding presence in the markets that we're most constructive on, the large product space, the chemical space. If you add both those factors with its own independent cargo book from an ADNOC perspective, and being able to marry those together in order to create utilization opportunities across the fleet, you really have an opportunity to maximize vessel employment, maximize vessel earnings by targeting the cargoes that are most advantageous for the overall fleet, and also an opportunity to drive costs lower by having a larger scaled fleet that are doing regular business in key geographical areas, whether that be worldwide or targeted areas that are driving kind of premium routes and premium returns. So it's that combination of tonnage, the commercial management platform, and also a cargo slate and working with one another that makes things really positioned for growth.
Yeah, very good, thank you. So Nick, ADNOC L&S placed a hybrid capital instrument to finance its growth. Why was an equity instrument appropriate to fund the acquisition of Navig8?
It's a really good question, because at the time we placed the HCI, our net debt to EBITDA was just slightly above 0. So, it seems like the point in time that you would be bringing debt onto the balance sheet, not hybrid capital or perpetual capital security. So the reason that we did that is, again, we're thinking very much about the long term. We've got tremendous growth ahead of us. I'm not sure people know, we've got $26 billion of forward contracted income in our book at the moment. We've got a tremendous amount of growth coming in our LNG fleet, our very large ethane carrier fleet. We've got very large ammonia carriers coming. We've got all the growth that we plan on integrated logistics. And we want to make sure that we position ourselves to finance all of that. We've got great, strong free cash flows, which will make up part of that. But ultimately, our target is to keep our net debt to EBITDA within 2.5 times, which I think, might surprise a lot of people that we're keeping it at that relatively low level. But again, that's about capacity for the next phase of growth thereafter. Right. Yeah. So the hybrid capital instrument, if you think about it like building a building for your finance, we've basically got that concrete foundation in place now that allows us to maintain a relatively conservative net debt to EBITDA level over the next 5 years while we're significantly growing the business. And it's really well priced at 125 basis points above SOFR. It's very close to what we'd be able to achieve in terms of debt financing on the same product, but with a perpetual capital security in place, much lower risk.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Jason, can you please share with the audience how you worked to secure this deal and the run-up to the announcement, and what you had to do to secure an agreement in 2024 to publicly announce the deal?
Yeah, I would categorize it as due diligence on top of due diligence with a side of due diligence, right? I mean, it was an extensive process. I mean, ADNOC L&S has built a tremendous company and platform, and they've done so through systematic due diligence and really focusing on companies they think are going to be complementary. So we're quite proud that we were selected as one of those companies that could add a lot of value, but also there was not a lot of overlap when we started looking into what each company did from a shipping perspective. So there was that opportunity for immediate value. And I think, everyone out there in the market from a commercial management perspective outperforms their peers, and everyone always takes the best time charter positions. But, it's very important to quantify and justify the representations you make early in the process. And that requires really a vetting of deals that were done and business models and how sticky your customers are. And certainly from a personnel perspective, that there's going to be a good cultural fit. And Nick had mentioned the alignment. You have two entities that are heavily fixated on growth, and it drives what we do every day. So you want to make sure you have that fit and you're aligned. So post-transaction, you're off and running. So.
Fantastic. So Nick, back to you. When we're talking about how it's going, how has the operationalization and integration of Navig8 into the ADNOC L&S platform gone so far? And then, what additional opportunities for maximizing efficiencies through integration do you see? So how's it going, and how do you see it further improvements.
For sure. So it's still very early days, right? We signed on the transaction in early 2024. We executed the transaction in early 2025, and there are obviously legal constraints on how much we can do in between in terms of planning for the future. I think we did what we could. We kept in really close contact, and there was a great dialogue between the leadership of the businesses. But ultimately, on the day that the ownership changes, there's a lot that moves. It's going really well. So we knew that the two businesses had very, very different cultures. That's part of what we wanted, by the way. We love the entrepreneurial culture of the Navig8 business. It's a great complement to, let's call it the more conservative culture of our core business in terms of getting things done. So we needed a platform that's going to enable us to move with speed and deliver value with speed. That's happening. I think we see great integration and contact now between the Navig8 team and parts of ADNOC where we see future business opportunities, and that's really important to us to see that dialogue continuing. In terms of creating synergies and value going forward, we have no doubts. We're kind of ahead of schedule in terms of delivering the synergies that we wanted and that we committed to from the beginning of 2026. We'll already see some of that coming through in 2025. And part of that is the commercial synergies, the rates achievement through the globalization of the commercial platform and using the commercial pool, improvements in operating costs on the assets, reduction in financing costs for the platform, and leveraging the technology which exists behind the Navig8 platform as well. So it's moving fast.
Yeah, fantastic. Good. So Jason, Navig8 provides new opportunities to ADNOC L&S through geographical market reach, new verticals, service capabilities, et cetera. Are you looking to open new office locations? And where do you see the highest potential for bolstering ADNOC L&S's customer offering?
So in terms of new office locations, no specific plans. Again, the key portion of our component of our business model has always been information. So anytime there's a particular growth area, certainly a demand center that's sprouting anywhere in the world, we're the first on the ground to have an office there, have a presence there, be close to the commodity movers, find a way to quickly build a relationship to where we have access to those flows, and then we can backfill with the assets that we think are most opportune to play in that region, right? So whenever there's an opportunity to open up another office, it needs to be justified with that type of dynamic, but we'll do it. Right. And then separately, I do think the existing locations, 15 offices strong all over the world, manned with seasoned people that have been in the commercial management business for as long as they have, and also the S&P and projects department's flows, that network's been built, right? So that can only heighten the level of service we provide everyone, the commodity movers, ADNOC L&S, when questions arise where we can work together wherever it may be.
Gotcha. Okay, fantastic. And then two more in the interest of time. And this one is just addressed to both of you guys. And Nick, you've already kind of touched on this, so maybe we can start with Jason and then kind of see if you have additional thoughts. But it talks about the integration. How's it going? I mean, we heard from Nick's standpoint, how he perceives that the integration is going. Jason, from your standpoint, maybe starting, and then, like I said, Nick, chime in as well. Operationally, culturally, just...
I think Nick said it very well with the ahead of schedule comment. I do feel as though we had certain aspirations of where we wanted to be in the integration and working with one another, particularly as it relates to ideas and flows. I think well ahead of schedule in that regard. Navig8 for a long time had contemplated taking on growth capital or selling portion of the business, potentially all of it, and what was never particularly attractive was to seek out capital just for capital's sake. We very much wanted a growth partner, a strategic partner that we could look to, and I think we all feel very much as though we found that. So once you have that spirit in place where people say, wow, this is a great partner, this is exactly what we always wanted, we have a partner with flow and commodities, it just makes everyone excited to come to work and increases the trajectory.
Yeah. It sounds very consistent.
Yeah. I think the one other thing I would say is, and we saw this very early in the piece when Navig8 became interesting as an acquisition target, we have a pretty similar organizational personality in terms of openness about problems and when we have an issue. So it's not the case that we come in every day and we completely agree on everything. but we talk about it, right? If someone disagrees with something, no one's going to be too polite to bring it to the table. And as a result of that, we've been able to resolve a number of things that can add value to the businesses relatively quickly, and work out where the strength lies and how we bring that strength to the table.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And having done a lot of M&As, sometimes these things don't always end up in as good of a place as you guys are. So it's great to hear that everything is working out as well as you hoped. So last question, Nick, and it pertains more to the current events than it does to how the transaction came together, how it's going. But how is ADNOC L&S responding to the current events in the Middle East? I mean, it's been topical all morning, but from your perspective, how are you guys responding to the situation?
So I would say carefully, right? We've built our platform to be extremely resilient. So from a business management perspective, we don't need to panic when the market moves in either direction. Typically, when you see events like we have today, they tend to be positive in the mid to long term for the shipping environment, although of course we'd prefer to see things normalize. Main focus at the moment is really around the safety of our fleet and our people, and making sure that we're very careful on a day-to-day and voyage-by-voyage basis, that we're not taking unnecessary risks and that we're not placing people in harm's way. So we have a very resilient platform. We know what our income is going to be to a large extent for many years into the future. We don't need to make rushed decisions about anything. We can really afford to focus on people and assets and security.
Yeah, fantastic. And that does us for time, guys. We have a couple minutes left. I'm sure everyone would love to go grab lunch. All right, fantastic. Nick, Jason, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you very much.